let's look at the actual characters that have been revealed so far. So we know there's going to be 8 characters in the game already, in the beta, alpha, whatever. There's rumored to be 12 on release. 3 agents, which are, what are they called? They're not heroes or champions. It's another name we're going to have to get used to and, talk about these things. There's so many different names, operators. It's very confusing. But 3 different agents have had their trailers released. First one was Phoenix. Very aggressive. Has
very excited for that.
Very, it's actually hilarious how, like, you look at his skills and they're literally just CS:GO utility. His fireball's literally a flashbang where it flashes and then bangs. Yeah. It's like everything utility-wise from CS:GO is kind of in his kit. What are your first opinions on Phoenix? What kind of agent or what kind of player do you think should pick him up?
Yeah, I think, I do think that there are some Counter-Strike players who will play him, particularly like entry fraggers, people who run into fights first and they do lead with the flashbangs and they try to click some heads and get some headshots early into fight to clear out a site. I think that comparative to other games, because I think that Valorant will take player base from other FPS titles more than it will take from Counter-Strike, because I think the Counter-Strike ecosystem is very stable right now in a way that Apex Legends and even Fortnite in some regards, Apex Legends and Fortnite and other titles like that, Call of Duty less so, but certainly Overwatch is another that I would point to that could be potentially hit by Valorant. I think that aggressive players, so DPS players that like playing hit scans like Tracer, etc., in Overwatch will probably tend to go towards something like Phoenix. I think that people who play Pathfinder, which is what I play in Apex, I think people that play like that will also play. People who are really in the face, Wraith, etc., in Apex. I think that people who have that inherently, naturally aggressive play style, or are the people who are supposed to lead their team into a site in Counter-Strike, those will be the people that sort of gravitate towards Phoenix's abilities.
Let's play a game of all of the agents that have been released. His ultimate, which when you press X, when you get enough, kills or orbs collected, we'll learn more about that hopefully soon, how you get your ultimate. But his ultimate is you press X, you go in, if you die, you go back in time, like a phoenix, blah, 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 rising from the ashes, gets back in the game. Overpowered or not? Do you feel that's overpowered, or you think that it's playable? Is it can you counter that?
I mean, we see something like that in Revenant, right? In Apex Legends, and Revenant I consider pretty trash tier right now in the current Apex Legends. So I think that there are ways to balance it, but it is a little bit more difficult in something like Valorant, which is more of a tactical shooter versus a battle royale like Apex Legends. But I mean, we see this with Echo and in League of Legends. We see this with Revenant and Apex, and like these revive, rewind type abilities, like they exist and they are counterable. But yeah, I mean, I could see people not knowing how to play it, and whenever open beta comes out, certainly people could lose to it quite a lot because they don't understand how to sort of counterplay it, especially in the fact that like wherever he rewinds to, I would hope that you're able to figure out where that is and camp it, right? Like you're able to go back to it just like you can a death totem on Revenant and Apex. You know where it is, you can find it, and you can wait for him to spawn back. He comes back with a sliver of his health, and you're able to take him down a second time.
Second agent that was introduced is Viper, the Toxic Queen. Basically crowd control on max, poison everywhere, poison walls, poison orbs, poison fangs. Basically crowd control, breaking up the map, fragmenting teams. Great for, planting the spike. What are your thoughts on Viper?
Yeah, my thought is like it's a mix of Cassiopeia and Caustic, right? I think that that's sort of like where some of the inspiration came from here. This seems like a character that's much more slow. I'm sure we'll get to one of the other characters here momentarily in Sova, who I think will be sort of a favorite of people who play op. The one thing we don't know exactly about Valorant, I don't believe, is like the loadout. I know that they have a buy system that's somewhat similar to Counter-Strike, so I expect that guns are interchangeable, but certainly from an ability perspective, like I would say that like Viper is something you'd want to run with a shotgun or something with an SMG, right? You're going to play close quarters. You're going to try to get the toxic gas. It looks like it deals some sort of slow, and obviously it makes your field of view a lot different. And so I anticipate that looking at her loadout, it's going to be a close quarters type character. And I think in that regard, she is similar to Caustic.
Yes, very similar to CS. I mean, the op in Valorant is literally called the OP. It's literally Riot doesn't care. They're not even being subtle about it. They're basically saying, we're taking it from CS. We know this game is great. We're going to take it. Okay, going to Viper's ultimate, the Viper's pit, essentially creates a giant orb of toxic gas. She gets to go inside it, and it doesn't disappear until she dies or leaves the orb. Basically, any enemy that comes into the pit is now highlighted and is easy to track and target down. Overpowered. Okay, what's your thoughts on this?
It's a Caustic and a Bloodhound ult. So Caustic and a Bloodhound ult, right? Like it's I don't think it's super overpowered. I could see how it could be played. I think a lot of people will try to play fancy in Valorant upon release, right? Like they'll try to play with the OP and play back, right? And try to do the fancy trick shot or the fancy headshot, right, with that gun. So I could see there's a way where like Viper's not particularly meta. But I mean, if you're going and you're trying to plant the spike, like I could see her being very good, right? If you're dealing in that close quarters sort of range, you put it over you, and use it as shield. And cover. I think that, I don't think overpowered at this point, but it's hard to tell without understanding all the characters and sort of the gameplay style of Valorant. I don't know if we have enough information to really assess, what her contribution to a game would be or not.
And the third and final agent that's been released with a trailer so far is Sova, who you've already talked about, the sniper with the tracking arrow that kind of bent the internet. Twitter was not very happy with his skills. The wall hacks, they were very upset at how this could, break the game, make it unfun. What are your first opinions on Sova?
I would compare Sova similar to like Hanzo, and not only just Hanzo because of bow and arrow, and also Crypto, with the ability to see around that wall. Obviously, this one may be the hardest one to balance in my opinion, because you got to have a little bit of lag on that and a little bit of delay if you're able to shoot something around a wall like that and get some vision. I think that you have to make it where Sova can be punished and pushed, right? And that's the most important part of this. I don't know, because I've not played the game, if that's going to be the case, but that will be the biggest thing that I think if it's not already instituted, it should. You should be able to counterplay every single one of these characters with another character or with your play style. This seems like one, if he's going to be able to send tracking arrows around walls and things like that, like it needs to be able to be pushed and surprised, right? You need to be able to run into him and kill him very quickly if that's the play style at which he plays his back and is able to track like that. But yeah, I mean, very, very comparative to like Hanzo in particular for me.
And his ultimate, which is pretty straightforward. It's basically 3 arrow nukes that you can basically send across the entire map. Overpowered, underpowered. Does it seem all right? For me, it seems pretty okay. It doesn't seem as...
Seems fine.
Seems fine. It seems like a generic ultimate, It
seems like a Call of Duty, Bangalore, Gibraltar, like Call of Duty hit, kill streak, or like Bangalore, Gibraltar, and Apex. There is counterplay around it. Just dodge it. Just run away. Again, it's about like how much timing you have in advance, right? If you know what's coming for you, or if it just... And so we'll see if it's like a cluster strike in that regard, or if it's more like a direct missile.
And finally, so we know more than 3 agents, but they haven't been officially released yet with, trailers and showing off their abilities. Of the remaining agents that have not been shown yet, which one are you most excited to see more? Which one are you most excited to play?
I'm not sure, honestly. Like I don't know. Like we've seen very.
I'm excited for Cipher. Cipher is the intel. It's basically intel. It seems so out of Rainbow Six Siege. I love R6. It's one of my favorite FPS games. It seems the drones, the tripwires, everything seems more mental. Obviously, every agent in this game, you're not going to be good at this game if you don't know how to shoot. If you don't know how to aim, you're going to be very bad at this game. I'm not going to be particularly good at this game because I like to brute force everything. I cannot run and gun in this game. I will get destroyed. But Cipher, for me, is an interesting character where I want to see more from him. I want to see how he interacts with the team. I want to see how his intel kind of works around this world of Valorant.
Yeah, I definitely think that like the big thing really is we've talked about here is that like Riot has done a really good job at pulling from other games and making the most of it, right? And taking sort of intel from various different games, particularly character-based games like Apex and Team Fortress and Overwatch, that where each character has his own ability, and really merging it in a world with Counter-Strike, which is very precise and tactical. That's the biggest thing for me about this game. It's the biggest question I have going into it. Is how forgiving is it, right? And what I mean by that, to your point about aim, is that if you miss a bullet by a pixel in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, if you have missed, there is nothing you can do about it. Recoils on every gun are different. You know, they all have different patterns, and they are really hard to learn and memorize, right? And you have to be able to know at least, I would say, 3 of them on the assault rifle front / SMG front. And I think that that's the big thing I want to know about Valorant. I would guess, based off what we've seen so far, it's not very forgiving. It's not like Call of Duty where you can run and gun and maybe hit a shot. I would bet that Valorant is a lot more like Counter-Strike in the sense that you have to be pencil perfect accurate to hit shots. The other thing I want to know is that in Call of Duty, the only shot that gives you significant damage increase is the head, right? If you shoot at the head in Call of Duty, you get more damage than if you were to shoot in the body. If you shoot someone in the leg or in the arm in Counter-Strike, you get less damage than a body shot. The body shot is more. The body shot then also is different than the headshot, right? And each gun has a different amount of damage that it does. Those are the biggest questions I have for Valorant, is whether or not the shots differentiate. I would like to think that they do, though. And I think that that's what makes Counter-Strike such a high skill game overall, and I'm curious to see sort of how Valorant compares in that regard.
Thank you, Jacob. And if you want more news about Valorant and any other FPS game on the market, Jacob has you covered. Check us out at espn.com/esports.